You're listening to Thunderquack Podcast Network. This is the Thunderquack Podcast, the official podcast of Thunderquack Podcast Network, where anything can happen. So strap yourselves in and hold on to your butts. It's Thunderquack time!
Hello and welcome back to the Thunderquack Podcast, the official podcast of thunderquack.com. You can get it early every Tuesday on patreon.com or wait and get it free every Friday on podcast services across the galaxy. I am one of your hosts, Michael Cohen.
And I'm your other host, Amanda Congan.
And we're taking a detour. We're taking a detour to San Diego. We should be talking about The Last Jedi this week. As a matter of fact, it should be our last episode before I go on a break.
Yeah. But we had to fit in this extra episode.
There's so much to talk about.
Yeah.
There's so much to talk about.
Comic-Con.
So, yeah.
So this is a full episode for San Diego Comic-Con. So if you came here expecting The Last Jedi, you can tune in next week. And in the meantime, we'll talk about all the really cool things that have happened in the Geekverse this week.
So I'm actually gonna Sarah Beth, I want you to know, I've got your email. It's in the rundown. We're not going to read it this week because it's kind of more focused on Star Wars stuff. So we'll talk about it next week.
And also, I hope you're feeling better. I meant to say that on the podcast forever because Sarah Beth, I know that you've asked for some thoughts and prayers. So wanted to
absolutely.
let you know that we have been thinking about you this whole time, but I never actually said it on the podcast. So I hope you're recovering all right, and we will read your email. Yeah,
we'll read your email next week when we're back to talking about Star Wars stuff. We have nothing Star Wars to talk about. We talked about the Sith Trooper last week. There were some things that were revealed at Comic-Con, but it was mostly publishing stuff, some collecting stuff.
I took pictures of all of the troopers because there was a display at Comic-Con, and I was like, this is for you, Mike. Look at this. I know the difference between this trooper and this trooper. Anyways, because Nate hadn't seen the Sith Trooper, and I was like, hey, look, it's a Sith Trooper. And he's like, what's that? And I was like, well, let me tell you.
But there's plenty of other news to talk about. I did this news as it happened, so starting on kind of Wednesday, Thursday, as stuff started dropping, and I guess it was Thursday that the Top Gun trailer came out. Yeah. All there is to say about that is that there's a trailer for Top Gun Maverick. It looks fantastic. Matt and I will definitely do Matt Crinkey and I will definitely do a Top Gun reviewed when Top Gun Maverick comes out. As a matter of fact, maybe Matt and I will do both Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick just for funsies. But you can also go back and listen to Amanda and I, if you're a Patreon
we totally
subscriber.
did a Top Gun.
We did a commentary for Top Gun.
That was one of the only movie commentaries we've ever done is on Top Gun. I want to say it's the only movie commentary where we actually watched the episode and commented as we were watching it.
Yeah.
Whoa. Yeah. And it's the one and only time I've watched Top Gun. We watched it for the first time when I hadn't seen it prior. So it was really interesting that this is the first overlap in news where my boss was talking about it at work today, the Maverick trailer, and I thought it was really interesting because it was totally of her generation. So that's pretty cool.
Go watch the trailer. It's fun. There was a really great trailer for his Dark Materials, which is the Golden Compass adaptation. Season 1 looks like it's going to be Golden Compass from start to finish. So theoretically, this series is 3 to 4 seasons because there are 3 books. Yeah. So, but it looks phenomenal. I mean, I don't want to get into spoilers.
But you were excited about this beforehand too, before.
Absolutely. I'm very excited about it going into it just because of the cast and the people that are involved. And then there was a little teaser that they put out that I was like, okay, this looks like it's going in the right direction. But there are a couple of things in the book. Golden Compass has been banned from schools. So the reason why I know what Golden Compass is because Crystal learned about it. She had to read it and study it for her children's literature class in university when she was doing her bachelor's. And she read it and she was like, you need to read this. I know you don't read books, but you need to read this. You will like this one. And the reason why they studied it in her class is because it was banned for religious reasons. There were a lot of school districts and such in the States that banned it because it does have a very atheist, very anti-religion theme to it. But it's also kind of spot on. And there's some really dark stuff that happens that is, I would say, analogous. Although the church structure in that is related to the Catholic Church. That's sort of the allegory that's going on there. And there's some stuff that's very, very analogous to the more horrific things that the Catholic Church has been accused of. I say analogous because it's not literal. It's a very different interpretation, but it is very much taking the childhood away from children. And the Golden Compass film just went right ahead and pretended like none of that's in the story. But the thing is that without that part of the story, there is no story. Right. Yeah. Right. That's like that integral part of in the theme of it, at the beginning of the third act. I mean, I'd have to go through it again and sort of break down the act structure because it's probably not 3 acts, but it's sort of at the beginning of the third act, or what I would consider probably like the fourth act, if it's 5 acts. That like you start to learn what's actually going on and what this organization is actually doing. Right. Because there's this idea, it's in the trailer. There's this idea of like children go missing, and nobody ever sees them again. And then we get to a point where we find out where they've been going, and it's not good. And not only did they show like, oh, the show's gonna go there, they showed stuff that was like, that's how I pictured it. And that's so difficult to nail because everybody has different interpretation. Now, like, the book is very descriptive of these moments. So like there's a very specific thing that very sharp element that they nailed. It is like seeing that, like I was like jolted back to reading the book. And I remember reading that part of the book and being like, I can't believe this is a YA book. Like when you compare it to the other stuff of the time, like Hunger Games, it was like Hunger Games is pretty dark. But this is like makes Hunger Games look like a like a rodeo as opposed to what it actually is, which is children murdering each other. But yeah, like I'm so excited. It's a weird thing to say, but I'm so excited that it's going to go there because I think it's a very powerful story. Like we talk about it all the time. I say that we talk about it all the time. That's how often we talk about it. The idea of genre storytelling, allowing people to sort of see things from a perspective that they might not have been able to look at things before. And I think that this piece of media done properly will have that effect, that there will be some people that will start to sort of see religious organizations a little bit more for what they are. I'm not condemning religion, by the way. The organizations are the problem, not necessarily the belief structures. And
you use the word organization, I use the word institution.
Sure, institutions.
Like overall, like all institutions are super problematic. And so when you put heart and pathos into certain ones, it's
So I'm really, really excited. And the cast is fantastic. Yorick is perfect. He's the armored bear. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be really, really good. It's gonna be a good successor to Game of Thrones and all of that. Although I think The Witcher is gonna take that mantle. I think Witcher's gonna come in and be like did you like Game of Thrones? Well, this is your new thing to watch. But
Cavill.
I
will say I'm super bummed I didn't go see the Witcher panel. But it's just Hall H, man, is so
it's bananas.
It is. It's
as Gwen Stefani would say, BANANAS.
Yeah, that's.
Please
always quote Gwen Stefani on the podcast.
Whenever I say something is bananas, that's the next thing that I say to quote Gwen Stefani. But yeah, his Dark Materials, if you haven't watched that trailer yet, go check it out. The last thing that I'll talk about before we get into our big topic is the Star Trek Picard trailer. We talked a little bit about Star Trek last week, I think.
Maybe. I think so. Yeah.
We kind of got into it a little bit.
Yeah,
you don't
also.
care, right?
I mean, I like the reboot universe.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not.
This
I don't
is not
know
the
that.
reboot
Yeah,
universe.
exactly. I don't know anything
the
really
original
about the original,
timeline, yeah.
but I quite appreciate.
So here's the thing. This is and it isn't the original and the reboot.
Yeah.
It's both, actually. So in the reboot Star Trek, the timeline that exists in is called the Kelvin timeline because it refers to the beginning of the story when the Kelvin is destroyed by the Romulan ship, right? And Kirk's father dies, Thor. That's a whole other thing. But so that creates the Kelvin timeline, which is this offshoot. It's a total tangent. It's a separate timeline. Yeah. The original timeline, in that original timeline, the time that Spock comes back from is the furthest in the future that we've gone until Picard comes out in the Star Trek official canon timeline. Right?
Oh.
It's actually that Spock because he's old Spock,
and he's been
Vulcans and Romulans live for a really long time, hundreds of years, right? That he's actually like post Voyager, post all of the movies.
I didn't know that. That's so cool. Okay.
So in that timeline, what's happened is I believe Data 2, the second Data, because Data originally dies in First Contact. Spoilers for First Contact. But then they find the guy who built Data built a bunch of Datas. Like Data is sort of like the final one because he was perfected. Right. Picard finds another one. They find an older model of Data. They put him together, and he's like an even dumber version of Data from season 1. He doesn't understand anything. He doesn't get human emotions. Blah blah. Blah. He's kind of goofy. But over time, obviously, he adapts and he learns, and that's what Data was about. Mm-hmm. He slowly became human. Mm-hmm. And so we're further in the future, and that second Data has become the captain of the Enterprise. So he, along with Geordi LaForge and Spock, are the ones who build the jellyfish ship that Spock uses to go back in time. Yeah. Or not uses to, but he's in when he gets sucked into the black hole and ends up back in time.
I love the jellyfish ship is totally evocative of what it is.
That's what it's commonly referred to. Yeah. But in that timeline, Picard is the ambassador to Romulus when it gets destroyed. Oh. So in the series Picard, the idea is that we're dealing with him because that timeline continues forward after that moment, even though the timeline then splits off into the Kelvin timeline. Mm-hmm. The original timeline still exists. Right? Discovery takes place in the original timeline as well, but it kind of messes things up because it's very different. And there's some technology and style stuff that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But the thing that's the most exciting about this series is that it's the idea of like Picard, after that happens, he goes back to Earth and he goes back to his home in France and to his vineyard and he's making wine and kind of trying to move on with his life after this horrible thing happens. I mean, the entire planet is destroyed on his watch, essentially. Yeah. He's involved in that story. There's a comic book that covers all of this. And it's going to kind of be the fallout for him from what happens there. Mm-hmm. And then him, the trailer shows that it's basically like him getting basically back on the horse and captaining a ship again. And I watched this trailer and I was like, I'm psyched about this show. This is one of probably the things that I'm most excited about in the next year. Because Picard is my original captain, right?
Well, here's the thing. He's mine as well because my mom watched that, and so I know him. That is,
But I went into it with like, oh man, I'm excited to watch this trailer. I wasn't expecting it to punch me thoroughly in the gut, and by the end of the trailer, like I was almost in tears. Like that, like I did cry. There was a couple of tears, but like I was on the verge of like ugly crying because I was like, the trailer goes through all of this stuff and it connects all these dots and brings back all of these memories of the original series, of not the original series, of Next Gen, of his original series, and that stuff's like formative for me.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like it kind of is. It's a tier below Ghostbusters and Ninja Turtles. Like it's kind of like the next tier down. It's like me and my dad watching Star Trek: The Next Generation. Like that is so important to my childhood, and they show the Captain Picard Day banner from the episode where like the kids throw Captain Picard a party to celebrate him being the best captain, and it just like I was expecting it to be good, but I thought it was going to be like Star Trek Discovery, where it was going to be like, okay, this is a streaming show, right? Yeah. The fidelity of this series, like it is film quality. I don't know how many episodes it is. I haven't like looked into that, but it is straight up cinematic.
Well, even
the
images look better.
Like to me, it looks better than the reboot movies look.
Oh yeah,
in terms of like the way that it's shot,
cinema,
it's so beautiful, and the story is so special to me that like those two things together took me by surprise, and I was just like, I was like one of those like the meme, like I was not emotionally prepared for this. Like I was not expecting it to come at me that way, and I'm so glad that that's the way that they're going with this, because it feels kind of special. Like actually the only other thing that I could compare it to is probably Endgame and Tony Stark's story and like the kind of the way that culminates. It's like this is something that like Star Trek is kind of on and off because you know when there's stuff that there's something to be excited about, not like the last 11 consistent years of MCU, but it's kind of similar to that of like this is all of Star Trek fandom culminating in a story about this beloved character, and they're gonna bring back a bunch of characters. There's it's in the trailer, like Data, the original Data. Like this is basically the story is that like as he tries to deal with essentially like kind of like not PTSD but sort of like the grief of everything, he makes it his mission to bring Data back, and there's something connected to the Borg, and Seven of Nine's going to be in it from Voyager, and LeVar Burton's going to be back as Geordi LaForge in part of it, and Jonathan Frakes is directing a lot of it.
Oh, that's cool.
And he's Riker, and so Riker will be in it as well. Yeah, that's awesome. And it's just like all of these things, which means that we're going to get to pop in with a lot of these characters and see where they're at. It's not their story, it's Star Trek Picard, it's not Star Trek The Next Generation again. So I like the idea of like we'll get like episodes where we get to pop in and see how Geordi's doing, see how Riker is doing, but there are certain characters and sort of the mythology of it that's coming together of like we've got Seven of Nine coming and basically being his sidekick for this story, or actually it seems like the one who's actually like sort of propelling the story and forcing him across the threshold. So I'm super excited about this show. I think it's gonna be really good, and that brings us to
well, I have like other things that you didn't include because like there's some stuff that I saw at Comic-Con. I assume your big news is the MCU stuff. So I'm going to detour to some of the things that I did at Comic-Con that are just like offshoots of this. The first one that I think is really cool leaving from Vancouver is that I flew to San Diego with the cast and crew of The Order, the YA Netflix series, and I flew back from San Diego to Vancouver with the cast of Riverdale. I just think that this is just like
was there tension on the flight back because Lily Reinhardt and Cole Sprouse just broke up?
Did they?
Yeah, they just broke up.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay, it was really weird because I tried not to be like a weirdo, but like when I came to the airport, I saw like KJ needs to dye his hair when he's traveling or something because it's so bright and red and it's like so obviously that you are Archie. So anyways, he was walking into the security line and I was like, because I arrived pretty early for my flight. I was like, there's
Wear
no way
a hat.
I know.
Right?
I was like, there's no way that they arrived 2 hours early for their flight, did they? But I was like, but also they're going back to Vancouver. Surely they're going to be on my flight. So I didn't actually like see them until I was like then like waiting at the gate. It was ready. We were ready to board. And they came back, and the flight announcement was like, we're not boarding yet. And Cole, Cole? Dylan? Which one?
Cole.
Okay. Came up, and they were having a conversation about like, let's just go back and wait until they call. But I think the girls stayed out because when I got on the plane, all of the girls were on the plane, but the guys were not. So now that you say that, I'm
was
like,
the thing all weekend.
Maybe there's
like,
a thing.
Yeah, that was the thing all weekend of
Interesting.
like they were kind of in these two like KJ and Cole were kind of over here, and then the girls were all over here.
Interesting.
And like it's so
That's
good.
so funny.
It's so gross to be that like into it, but like I am.
Like I
care.
I like honestly though, when I saw that the Riverdale panel, I didn't realize that the Riverdale panel was on Sunday until Sunday when I was like, what could I go see? And I was like, I haven't been to Hall H yet. Maybe I'll go see this. And then instead I shopped for the morning. But I actually was prompted. I was like, I could go in, but I know nothing about Riverdale.
Yeah,
and
you
I'm like,
watch,
I would
right?
be sitting there and just so confused.
After the last season, you would be so lost.
Oh yeah.
Season 3 was
read,
stupid ridiculous.
I
enjoyed it, but it was so dumb.
The panel description was so confusing that I was like, there's no way that I would enjoy this.
Archie went to juvenile detention
Like,
at the beginning of the season for a murder he didn't
so,
commit.
yeah, I don't know.
And
It just anyways,
which put him on this whole path. He became a boxer for some reason. Weird. I just like it. Yeah.
Anyways, I didn't, but it was just kind of a fun thing without it being super weird. But like that, I was like, oh, I identify. Really, I just know Cole and KJ. Like I know what they look like. But then when I was getting on the plane, I was like, that girl looks familiar. I was like, oh, that's Veronica. Mm-hmm. Is that the one that anyways.
Yeah.
I just like, anyways. Wow. So I'm pretty sure it was them because they were wearing sunglasses in the airport. And I'm like, you girls are more conspicuous with sunglasses on than you are without. Oh, I saw Cadley Mack in a bathroom with.
I'm sorry, that's a made up name.
With Stephen Amell's wife. They were like really good friends.
Oh, yeah.
Like Stephen Amell has that group of people, like him and his wife and Cadley Mack. And Cadley Mack is the showrunner for Roswell. Okay. Like she's fantastic. And I'm such an idiot. I was like, I love your Instagram. But what I meant to say is, I love how you're destigmatizing mental health by posting about it on your Instagram. So anyways.
That's not the same thing.
That's not the same thing at all.
It's like you had your moment. Like you had, like, especially for you, because like professionally, it's like you had your moment at Comic-Con to network with someone that you admire, that's in the business, that you look up to, and could potentially be a good connection. And you were like, I was trying not
to bother her. I was washing my hands and being like, why does this person look really familiar? And they're like standing there, like putting their lipstick on and like chatting right before the Arrow panel. And I was like, oh, I think Cassandra is Stephen Amell's wife. Yeah. So anyways, so her and Cassandra were like in the bathroom. And I was like, what am I going to say? And I was like, Instagram. That's because I haven't watched Roswell, so I couldn't like talk about the show that she showruns. Even though as a child that was my favorite.
Watch Roswell because
it was my favorite show as a child.
I know, but the new one does not look great.
Anyways,
does not look great.
But anyways, there's because also Aisha Tyler is part of that group as well. Like there's like a bunch of them, and they all do like it just seems like there's a really fun bunch of like supportive people and doing different things. So anyways. I was going to Instagram her later being like, sorry, I embarrassed myself in the bathroom with you. But it's all good. Of all the things I could have done that were embarrassing at Comic-Con, I feel like telling someone I like their Instagram, there are worse things. So it's all good. Anyways, the one thing that I did do that was quite fun, and the one time I took advantage of my press badge, because I'm a terrible press person. I didn't go to like the press rooms because I didn't contact any of the press people. Like I didn't like really follow through with that. So really I was just like covering stuff outside of it. But the Amazon Prime, like I was on the Amazon Prime distribution list. So I went to the Amazon Prime Carnival Row screening and party.
Yeah.
Carnival
Row is a show?
It's a show. So here's the thing with Carnival Row. I had not heard of it until I got to Comic-Con. Yeah. And it is advertised absolutely everywhere at Comic-Con that by the time I went to the party, I wasn't going to go to it originally, but by the time I was like, I'm interested in this show because the way that it was advertised, first of all, I didn't realize Orlando Bloom was coming back. So it's starring Orlando Bloom and Cara I don't know how you say our last name. Devergermy, something with a D.
Cara Delevingne?
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
So they're the ones that star in it. And the premise is that it's basically the like London in the 1800s or whatever, but humanity has invaded like fairylands. So there's like fairies and pucks and like all this stuff are basically immigrants in England in like olden day England.
I bet it's a metaphor.
Oh yeah, it's almost like it's shoehorned and like shoved down your throat. So it's an interesting way to deal with immigrant issues in the past.
Yeah.
With fairies, and like it's an odd and basically what it is he's an inspector and he's solving fairy crimes, or fairy murders. It's and they like
so it's fables.
They come in basically it's like the idea that
Hollywood,
it starts with her,
get it together, just make fables. I don't understand why this can't happen. Just make fables.
Yeah. But anyways,
don't make it with Orlando Bloom, please.
Oh, but I love Orlando Bloom.
That's fantastic. I'm happy for you. But don't make fables with Orlando Bloom.
He wouldn't fit with it. I do have to say the funnest or the weirdest part, I don't know what to say about it, is when people try to like be like, oh well, there's an EW party next door, so I guess the stars can't come to this panel. But the three of them had been walking around in mascot costumes that everybody clearly knew it was them, because why would you be wearing a mascot costume? That's the worst disguise at this clearly, like, nobody's dressed up at this party.
I'm gonna give John Boyega the credit for this, because I think he was one of the first ones to really do this. He just put a Stormtrooper mask on.
Yeah, that's all you gotta do.
Like just his street clothes, and then he just put a Stormtrooper mask on at Star Wars Celebration in 2015, and I probably walked past him.
Yeah, like
more than likely I did, because it was like the next day. It was like, did you guys know that like John Boyega was just on the floor after the panel on Friday?
But I saw pictures. Lin-Manuel Miranda did that along with the guy that I actually follow on Instagram that I can't remember his name. But anyways, they were walking around because they were wearing subtle costumes. But I felt really bad because Orlando Bloom was like, you guys weren't supposed to know it was my idea, and I feel like it failed. I was like, I believe that it was your idea to wear these terrible mascot costumes.
Look, Legolas, your elf eyes clearly couldn't see that was a bad idea because you're out of touch. Never listen to a star that's that big. They don't get to make decisions about stuff like that. This is why you hire people, right? To be people that nobody knows, that go out in real life and deal with real life things. Because when you're that rich, when you have two franchises, I don't care if the two franchises are Lord of the Rings and Pirates, which are big but not the biggest,
but also like very much for the like everyman. Well, I guess Lord of the Rings, but
well, like you're out of touch. You don't understand how humans live their lives. You're Orlando Bloom. You thought that was a good idea. It was a terrible idea.
But somebody let him do that, which is the like.
Well, that's the problem, right? He hasn't surrounded himself with the right people.
Yeah. But I think Mark Guggenheim is one of the. I feel like Mark Guggenheim's at it. I don't know if he's a showrunner, but for some reason, I think he was at the thing announcing stuff. I just remember somebody that I was like, "Oh, you're an Arrow person," and so it was like an interesting connection where I was like, "Oh, you're also involved in this thing." But it might not have been him. It might have been somebody else that was from. But for some reason, I want to say that it was. Anyways, I can actually like look up this information and have real information to provide you. But anyways, I watched the first 2 episodes. I'm not allowed to really you're not really allowed to talk about it. It doesn't come out. But it's a Prime series, so it'll be streaming on Prime, which I feel like it would play all right if you could watch it consecutively. But it is it's like a little darker, like it's a little like more of a like drama. The special effects are fantastic. Yeah, I will say like the way like the realism of the fairies is quite good. And the pucks that they call them, like the horns that they have on them are really awesome as well. And the thing that got me excited about it is I love when worlds can do lore really well. Yeah. And so the thing that had got me interested in it is that in one of the buses there was like the slogan for it is like, no critch is a good critch. And it made me realize, I was like, critch? oh, it's slang for creature. And you can already tell that critch is a slang for like, right? And so I love it when worlds can build on things that we know as humans. Like puck, that's that's like a hoofed.
This is why YA stuff connects so well.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that they do, it takes a second to connect these dots, but you have to really think about it. And it's actually one of the reasons why Hunger Games is kind of the odd man out on this. But a lot of YA goes into Harry Potter is the best example, right? Of like the sorting into houses. And Golden Compass is very similar of like everybody has a daemon and your daemon is unique to you, and we can make a quiz on the internet to determine what kind of daemon you have. But it's that because you're trying to connect to a young audience, being YA, right? The thing that teenagers identify with is individuality. Right?
Yeah.
So it turns out that teenagers identify with that, but human beings identify with that really strongly.
Not just teenagers.
I like individuality, identity, tribalism, all of that stuff, to the point where like people lie about their Hogwarts house because they want to be considered a Hufflepuff, even though they're probably not. So many people who are like, I'm a Hufflepuff, and I'm like, you've never done a silly thing in your life. You are absolutely a Gryffindor, and you should be ashamed of it. What are you? Are you a Gryffindor? No.
Heck no.
What are you?
Slytherin all
You're
the way,
Slytherin?
baby.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
Same
I
thing.
haven't really taken the quiz,
Same
so people
thing.
get mad at me. But I'm like a Slytherclaw.
You haven't done Pottermore?
It took a lot of time, and I didn't feel like doing it.
You're the worst.
It was a lot.
You're the
It
worst.
took a lot of energy.
You're the worst.
I know.
I'm a
We're
Ravenclaw,
aware of
in
this.
case people care about that.
Guillermo del Toro has done an episode too. Anyways, Mark
Oh,
Guggenheim
really?
is one of the series writing credits.
That's so difficult for me because on the one hand, I don't want to support anything that Mark Guggenheim does. On the other hand, Guillermo del Toro is the greatest.
So Mark Guggenheim is only credited here on one episode. I think maybe he was there because he was at the thing and he probably like helped get it off the ground or whatever.
Probably.
But I don't think he's one of the primary, like he's not showing up as one of the primary producers on the show. Like it's, but I can't actually see who the primary EPs are on the show anyways, because the internet is giving me no information. You would think because I was there I would have written this information down, but I did not.
Whatever.
But I really liked that there was free booze.
You're acting like everybody at Comic-Con is doing so much work. And it's like the majority.
Like everybody was doing so much work. But it's all
No,
good.
what you saw was the DC TV podcast crew who all
they just worked their butts off
because
man.
they all are pursuing careers in journalism.
Okay, I mean that makes sense.
So they're basically doing spec work or doing freelance work to make a name for themselves. Yeah. You have a career and a job that paid for you to go there. So you don't care, just like I don't care, right? Like I care in the sense of like I want to go and then I want to be able to talk about stuff on the podcast, but I'm not gonna do the
they're all like writers and like they're doing
like
a
I'm
bunch
not
of blog
gonna like
posts
have
and
my
stuff,
fedora with the press badge in it going like, hey, what's the scoop on the thing? I don't care. Right? Like if I can talk to Stephen Amell, I'll talk to Stephen Amell. If I can talk to James Arnold Taylor, I'll talk to James Arnold Taylor. But I'm not gonna go out of my way and like really like track things down and
But it was cool. It was cool to be there and to talk to people and to see stuff. And like I say, Carnival Row was one of the only like special things that I went to.
Yeah.
And I actually like went to it because it was a thing where like when you're surrounded enough by propaganda, you start to be like, what is this about? And so like they were enjoyable, 2 enjoyable episodes. And like but it's like it is a very specific kind of genre, like amalgamation of stuff. But it's I like 19-year-old me was so excited. I mean, Orlando Bloom was all over my dorm. Like, I had so many posters. So it was really cool to...
I vaguely recall that.
Right?
I vaguely recall it. Can you pass me that pillow?
Oh, I sure can. There you go.
This chair's so
I know. I feel so bad every time I'm sitting here, but then also I'm going to continue to sit here because it's
my posterior just fell asleep. Oh. And I was like, that's no good. That's not a good place to be in.
Anyways, those were my other like Comic-Con things aside from like Arrow, which of course like I went to the Arrow panel. Steven Stephen Amell is like so emotional with everybody like doing this big goodbye to him. It was really cool to see, like, there's obviously the first person that got up to ask a question is obviously someone, there's some sort of story there, where it's this like girl that he like talked to her, like he's like, and he's like, did you bring back the bow? And she like holds up the bow, and then he comes off the stage and he trades the bow for like a jacket. So it's clearly some sort of like that she's there at all.
Yeah,
things,
he,
and, like,
I think he gave her the bow last year.
Yeah, I think that maybe is like what it is. It's like an ongoing. Anyways, it was really cute and really sweet to see that. And I mean, he is such a genuine person. Like, that is really. I mean, but we knew that already because of like talking to him beforehand and like knowing like.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's never responded to another one of my emails after he got what he wanted from us. But yeah, other than that.
But that's, well, I mean, also he's probably inundated with those emails.
He's a busy guy.
But it's I
would have liked to have fostered that relationship a bit more than I think he was willing to.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm a little bit bitter about it, but I'll also like there are some we owe everything to him.
Of course. And we're not as good of fans as we could be, because I feel like one of the things going there with the DCTV podcast people is realizing how good of a relationship they've fostered with some of the people on the shows, because they go to everything. And so like Brandon Routh knows those DC people, the Legends people.
In the pre-show that's on the uncut version, you will hear us talk about some of these elements. I can't afford to go to all these cons. Yeah. I've never been to Comic-Con. Yeah. Right? And like there's two aspects of it. I can't afford it financially. Mm-hmm. I also can't afford the time. Yeah. Like I don't don't have the
first year that it ever was an option
responsibilities
for me, really.
here.
Yeah, where I was like, hey, this is something that I could actually do this
I would
year.
have loved to have been there. I'd love to be at everything if I could be, but no.
But it's so anyways, but that is it's kind of cool to see all of these other fans fostering like specific relationships, and we just never really got there, I think, with them and like the Arrow show. But it's kind of just cool to be around, and the Arrow writers and a lot of the writers, those were some of the most interesting panels that I went to at Comic-Con. I will say that I might not have gone to the Hall H stuff, and I might not have gone to all the big stuff, but there is so much at Comic-Con. Like, they have a full film festival, which I learned the first day to not go to that in my particular... Like, I learned what a PA was at one of the panels, and I was like, maybe this is a little bit something I should have been going to like 15 years ago. Yeah. But it is really good for like brand new filmmakers that want to learn, which is cool. But then the writer panels were really good, because you have the showrunners talking about like how they're doing pitches and all that, and it was really cool. I think it's the Legend showrunner was on a bunch of stuff, and then Derek Hughes, who I got a chance to interview after the first panel, he was on a bunch of stuff as well. So the DCTV folks really represented at these television panels. Yeah. In really practical, concrete ways, for like people that are wanting to get into the industry and specifically as writers. Yeah. And my favorite panel that I went to was actually something that Nate convinced me to go to, because he's such a weirdo. He likes like things that are like outside the norm. And he saw this panel that's like real world threats to humanity. He's like, oh, I want to go to that. And it was like probably 5 of the smartest people I've ever been in a room with. Yeah. But it was 2 NASA scientists, 1 like Homeland Defense person, another. Like, basically, did you know that we have interplanetary defense like roles at NASA? One of them is specifically for planetary defense in terms of biological threats, and the other one is impact threats. So we had both of those people talking about like asteroids, and then talking about like germ warfare coming back from Mars, and then somebody else talking about like nuclear threats and like how easy it actually is to build like a nuclear bomb that we see on all these television. It was like a really cool. Did I say it wrong?
You say nuclear, it's nuclear.
Okay, well,
that's all right.
Tomato. But anyways, it was a really...
No, not tomato. Tomato are 2 different pronunciations of the same word, both spelled correctly. Nuclear is not a word. Nuclear is a word.
Whatever. That's the same with espresso and espresso.
Nope. Again, I mean, it is the same.
That's what I mean. That's the same.
It is the same, but yeah, like that's not a justification for your behavior.
Everybody knows what you mean when you say espresso. So I feel like arguably... It's just, how did we get here? Let's talk more about Comic-Con and not my grammar. Anyways, those are my Comic-Con specific recaps. And now we can
I always love it when you go to the panel that you weren't expecting to go to, that turns out it's Celebration 6, I think. Mm-hmm. It's 5 or 6. No, it was I think it was 5. It was the first celebration I went to. We went to the Why We Love the Prequels panel, and it was incredible. It was so good, because it was the first time that I had been in a room with a bunch of people who were like, these movies are not that bad. Like, everybody just relax. This is what's really good about them. And that's kind of what put me on the path of a lot of stuff that we discussed the last few weeks, last month or so, about the prequels and about how it's like, well, like, look, maybe the execution's off on some things, but this story is actually phenomenal. So it's kind of what put me on that path. But you never know with a con. And that's why I was like to say, like, be open to, don't go into it like knowing everything you're gonna do, because then if you don't get into panels, you end up disappointed or whatever. You gotta go find your friends and then
just hang out. That's what people
like expand your horizons. Like, you gotta go do some stuff that you weren't expecting to do, because more likely than not, that's gonna be the stuff that you walk away from a con going like, wow, that was actually really, really cool.
Watch the Batwoman pilot as well. So this is the first time I'd seen the Batwoman pilot. It was in preview night. I didn't stay for
If you're a Patreon supporter, you've heard the
I actually
review.
delivered on some exclusive Patreon content. Yay! It was good. Thanks you to shout out to all the folks at DCTV who let me talk to them over drinks.
Yeah, they just gave us free labor for that one. That's fantastic.
But the thing that was funny is that it was screening at the same time as 2 other shows, and one of them was Pennyworth and then something else. And Pennyworth is on like Epix, which is I guess a US channel that nobody has. But I don't know Batman well enough, and I was like, I was like, Pennyworth, like from It, and I was like, oh wait. Pennywise. Yeah. Different person, not Alfred Pennyworth. But then, so like I had said that to all the DCTV folks, and they just looked at me like I was insane. But then when I went back,
it was like, how many people were you with? Like 4 other people?
There was like 4 of them, yeah.
So it was like 4 of the looks that I give you when you do that stuff.
But then here's the thing. Then I talked to Nate the next day, and I was like, and there was another show called Pennyworth, and he's like,
the clown,
like the clown? And I was like, oh, thank you. I feel so vindicated.
That trailer for It too is terrifying, by the way.
I have no interest in seeing that scary movie. Too scary.
Those movies look so good, but also I don't have time for that anxiety. Like, I don't like.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'll explain something about the way that my brain works. It doesn't stop, right?
Yeah. So you just like finish the movie and then you think about it for like.
Yeah, and like I'm a creative mind, so if I see something like that, my brain goes, cool, that was dark, that was scary, that was twisted. What if you pushed it a little bit further though? Like, what's the next scariest thing? And like, my brain wants to go to those places, and I have to be careful about what I watch, because I watched the first time I watched Paranormal Activity, it was like a week of like just obsessively thinking about that.
Right.
Like that, like, and I used to watch a show called Paranormal State that was about these college students that had a paranormal research club or whatever, and it's like it was reality TV. Right. It was TLC or something like that, and they would go around and like investigate these different paranormal.
No, so scary. I don't watch that stuff.
And more often than not, it was them walking through a dark hallway with a night camera on, and then hearing a. And everybody going, what was that? What was that? And then the cameras go all shaky, and then it turns out that it was either a cat or nothing, right? Most of the time. And then like in like season 4 or 5 of that show, all of a sudden it started to get into demonic possession stuff. And there was a certain point where I was like, I can't watch this show anymore. Yeah. Because especially at that time, that was when I was working at the church, and I was really heavily studying stuff and into that sort of thing. And I very often say about religion, people always want to take the angels and God and Jesus and all of the easy, happy stuff, and then throw out that stuff from the very beginning of the book that's about demons and Lucifer and monsters and the things under your bed, right? And it's like, if you take one, you have to take the other. So if you're going to have faith and believe in God and angels, etc., you also have to take the flip side of that coin. Like it's the Taoist element of it, of like you can't have light without darkness and vice versa. And so I was like, that was my mindset at the time. And then they start going to like this demonic possession stuff. And I was like, this is very real to me, and I don't want to live in this world. So that's good. Like, so when I watch it, like when I watch the trailers and stuff, I'm like, these movies look so good. Mm-hmm. And then I see like a clip from one of them, and I'm like, nah, can't do it. Can't do it. I can't. It's way too much for me, because I just know, like, it's not that I will be scared watching it. I'll actually usually be like pretty like fascinated by it, but then it like it lives in my brain. It just like takes up residence, and it takes a really long time for me to clear that stuff out. Because like similar to like if I go to a Marvel movie and then like for the next 2 weeks I'm obsessed with that, right? It's the same thing. It's just the way that my brain works, and I can't trust that.
No, and I can't do horror in any way. Like it really, like, honestly, like being just like, it freaks me right out. So I know.
Let's actually get to the hard veer into the big topic. And the big topic is, of course, the Marvel Hall H panel from Saturday night, where we got the announcement of everything in Phase 4.
I'm so excited. Yay. I love him before everybody else loved him. I loved him.
We are going to go through this in order for release.
You can drive it.
So it's 10 things were announced. So I'm just going to run through them really quickly, and then we're going to go one by one. Black Widow, May 1st, 2020. Okay, so that's the next MCU movie. Mm-hmm. Fall 2020, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
That's a TV series, though, right?
Disney Plus series, yeah. November 6th, 2020, The Eternals, which is a movie. February 12th, 2021, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Or not, and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which is the one that I'm most excited about. Mm-hmm. It's probably what we're going to spend a lot of time on. Spring 2021, WandaVision, which is another Disney Plus. May 7th, 2021. I'm very excited for this one as well. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
Spring 2021, Loki on Disney Plus. Summer 2021, What If on Disney Plus. So Marvel's What If, which is animated. And then fall 2021, Hawkeye, again on Disney Plus. And closing it out, November 5th, 2021, Thor, Love and Thunder. That's a lot to talk about.
We're not 2 years, man.
In 2 years. Like, so, that's insane. Terry Schwartz from IGN asked Kevin Feige at the end of it, like, so nothing about Phase 5, nothing about, like, so, like, all this other stuff that you kind of mentioned. You're not going to go into details. And Kevin Feige quoted Wong in Avengers Endgame, that's not enough. Right? Because, they got on stage and opened up 10 portals and 100 new superheroes walked through, and everybody was like, awesome. But what about the Fantastic Four? But I will say, at the end of the panel, Kevin Feige did mention, he said, look, we just covered a lot of stuff, but we don't have time to talk about Black Panther 2. We don't have time to get into Captain Marvel 2, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. We don't have time for that. We don't even have time for Fantastic Four. I didn't even get to say the word mutants. It's like he goes through all this stuff. And he's like, this is my favorite part of what he said. He's like, those are all rumors. You guys have heard rumors. Those are all the rumors that are out there. But here's something that I don't think that there is a rumor for. And then he brings out Mahershala Ali, who comes out, and the Black Widow cast and a bunch of the others had put on Black Widow hats to like celebrate the Black Widow as the next MCU movie, which is really cool. And then he's like, Mahershala, you have a different hat. You want to put that hat on for everybody? He puts the hat on, and then the lights cut, and the screen. There's video of this that you can find on Twitter and whatnot. The Variety has it, I think. the screen starts to reveal the logo for Blade, and the audience went nuts. And like watching it, like I watched the video after I already read all of the announcements, right? So I already knew all of this, but watching it is like talking about it, like the hairs stand up on my arms. Blade is what started everything. Right? Like back in 1998, superhero movies were not a thing. Yeah. And then Blade came out, and there were a lot of people who were like, this movie about vampires is really cool. And then those of us who were Spider-Man fans from the 90s were like, it's actually a Marvel comic. Like this is a comic book movie. This is like, the last thing before that had been Batman and Robin. Oh, geez. Right? Right. Yeah. So it's like, and then Blade comes out, and everything's like, we're heading into the new millennium, right?
I only remember Blade 3 because it has Ryan Reynolds in
it. Blade continues to be like, Blade holds up. The first one holds up. That is a good movie. Nice. But it defined the whole black leather trench coat, shiny chrome weapons superhero thing that then X-Men would continue, and then even Spider-Man would have to a certain degree, and would continue into everything else until we get to the MCU, and then we get to actual comic book stuff. But yeah, like Blade was the trailblazer, and people always go back and go, X-Men is what started us. No, 2 years before X-Men, Blade happened. And actually, I was talking to some friends about it a little while ago, actually, and it was funny because we were talking about it, and it was like, yeah, Blade like really kind of like defined that late 90s, early 2000s look. And then somebody was like, no, it was The Matrix. And I was like, pretty sure Blade's before Matrix, if not like earlier that year. I think it's 1998. But it's like
the same,
and we looked it up, and it was like, Blade beat The Matrix to the punch by a year. Yeah. And I don't think it gets credit for that. Yeah. The Matrix is what gets all the credit for like that look in the early 2000s of the like black leather, sort of like the green tones and everything, like all that stuff. But Blade actually is the one that pioneered that and started the superhero movie revolution, right? So it's so exciting that Mahershala Ali is the one that's going to be playing Blade in this new version. Apparently, like the story Kevin Feige tells is that after he won his second Academy Award, Mahershala Ali, he called up Marvel Studios and was like, set up a meeting with Kevin Feige. I want to come and talk about something. And he said, like, when Mahershala Ali calls, like, you take that meeting. Yeah. And it's so funny because Kevin Feige is literally on the top of Hollywood right now. Like, he is the most successful producer in the history of Hollywood. And he's like, when this guy says, hey, I want to play, you go, what do you want to do? And he walked in and was like, Blade. At which point Kevin Feige was like, we're going to make it happen. So like, they don't have a director. They don't really have producers for it. They don't have a script. They have the character and they have Mahershala Ali. And
that is great.
That's all you need for me to be like, yeah, I'm in. Like I had posted, like, I don't know who half these characters are. I don't know the Eternals. I don't know Shang-Chi. I don't know a lot of these supporting characters that are coming in, and some like all the whole supporting cast in Black Widow, foreign to me. Don't know who any of these characters are, but I have already made room in my heart to love all of it.
That's a lot in 2 years. It's good. Before I lose my train of thought, you mentioned The Matrix, and I have to say, I don't think you know this about like the first film knowledge I ever got from you. Was when we were doing that Matrix thing. You taught me what color correction was. Because you were like, well, when they're in the Matrix, everything is green, and when they're outside of the Matrix, everything is blue. And it like blew my mind. And now being in film, I'm like, that's just a standard, like, you know, color palettes are part of how movies get made and our work, and it's like a storytelling technique.
And that color theory is elementary.
It's elementary. But it was like a thing that I was like, I'll always remember you for that particular piece of film knowledge that I
this is one of those things where it's like The Matrix is the example that you always go to when you're teaching that bit of color theory in film. It is not a good example. And explain why. It's like when I say that, like, saying that this is a perfect segue breaks your segue. The color theory and the way that it's pulled off in The Matrix, the reason why it's a perfect example to go to is because it is so obtrusive on the storytelling, right? Like, it hits you over the head on, like it's just like
everywhere. Yeah.
Here we go. Like it's green. That means we're in the Matrix. It's blue. That means we're in the real world. And it's like it's so heavily color corrected in both directions that you can tell the difference. Yeah. But a great film,
you're not going to be
a
able to
really well-made film is going to do things with the color palette without color correcting. I mean, like, it's going to color correct, but like without it being so like obvious. Everything is now in a green tone, everything is now in a blue tone.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like
yeah.
I don't know, what's a really good example? I'm hard pressed to think of a really good. Actually, I The Last Jedi is a really good example because the color red in that movie is conflict, right? And it pops up a few times, and like most notably in Snoke's throne room and on Crate. But like if you pay attention to the color red in that movie, which symbolizes obviously the Sith and the dark side and Kylo Ren, it's very important in it. And you notice that like Rey's story, when she's not interacting with Kylo Ren, there's like no red. It's always like greens and blues, and it's like these lush environments. So yeah.
I think this is the website.
That's good color theory.
The Colors of Motion is brilliant. It's a brilliant website. Where you can go and see all the movies, like just the colors of movies from a frame of each one, and you can see how color theory works in a way that I had never like thought of before, and it's brilliant. And the more you like hang out with cinematographers, the more, and like artists and designers, you start to like realize these things. But like it's brilliant. Like you can see this visual storytelling in the colors of each. Like look at this. This is addictive. Like look, it's just like Alice in Wonderland is all blue and Aliens is all gray and brown. Anyways, it's a brilliant website, Colors of Theory, or colorsofmotion.com.
Okay, let's go back to the beginning of this. Talk about Black Widow.
Yes.
So notable things. David Harbour from Stranger Things is going to be in it. He's basically playing the Russian version of Captain America. It's going to take place after Civil War, sort of like in the time between Civil War and Infinity War.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So it's going to fill in that gap.
Okay.
There's another character in it. I should have notes, but
then what kind of a podcast would this be if you
I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she's essentially like a sister to Black Widow, to Natasha, and she even like calls her sis. And the expectation here is that this is going to be a passing of the torch.
Oh, so that it can go on to that's like
she will become the new Black Widow.
What all of the new
a lot of it's going to be a common theme in a lot of
this. It's like passing off like what it is. Yelena,
yeah. And Taskmaster is in it, and that's a really big deal for comic book fans.
Cool.
Taskmaster is cool because his superpower is the ability to mimic any fighting style. Like he can look at you and like predict everything you're gonna do, and then use your own moves against you. So that'll be really cool against Black Widow, who's a martial artist.
And it has a female director.
Yeah.
So I don't know. No, I don't know if anybody knows any of these movies, but they seem like pretty like in the same vein of.
It's more like, indie fare.
Indie fare, but also kind of like in the like Russian spy genre. Yeah. So it seems like it's.
So I think with this one we're going to be going back to kind of the tone of Winter Soldier and Civil War, a little bit more of that Captain America vibe.
Yeah.
Which is nice. It'll be cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So after that is Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and this is essentially going to be the story of how Falcon. How Sam grows into the title of Captain America. So a lot of people thought, myself included, that after Endgame, at the next time we heard about this show, we would see that the title had changed to Captain America and the Winter Soldier. But it hasn't. It's still the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So that says to me that this is really going to be focused on his journey to becoming Captain America, and he won't be Captain America until the end of the series. It's Disney Plus series. They're targeting, with all the Disney Plus stuff, 6 to 8 episodes, which I think is perfect.
So good. This is a sweet spot. Yeah, for sure.
Stranger Things was 8 episodes. It was perfect. Yeah. There was no extra.
I like 10 episodes. I'm a 10 episode.
10 is nice. But I think you get real tight on 8. I think you
do. 6 is too short because that's Good Omens is only 6. And I feel like I needed at least 8 to be satisfied, and 10 if I'm really enjoying something.
The thing about these is that, so one thing is Mandalorian, we've already heard, is going to be released week by week. It's not going to be binged, right? So my expectation is that the MCU stuff will be similar. It'll be a week to week thing, which means that 6 episodes is a month and a half.
Oh, yeah, fair.
Of content. So that actually will carry us from Black Widow
to Eternals.
Not to Eternals because it's fall, but I think Black Widow, which will kick off the summer movie season, and then summer movie season will wind down. Falcon and Winter Soldier will come out, and it'll carry us into November to Eternals. So that it won't actually feel like that much of a gap.
Right.
But obviously, it's Falcon, it's Bucky. And Zemo is back, the villain from Civil War, the guy who was manipulating everything.
Oh,
yeah. I don't know. So he's back, and he's got his actual comic accurate. In the comics he wears like a purple, sort of like in Canada we would call it a toque. It's like a knit.
They call it
it's like a mask, but it's like a full face. It's got like the stripes. That's why I say it's like a toque.
It's Captain America or Captain? It's a Captain America villain.
Baron Zemo is the character.
Yeah. That guy.
Yeah.
He was in Civil War.
That's what I said. Civil War. Yeah.
Sorry. I laughed at how I misinterpreted what you said.
That's okay.
I was like, Winter Soldier.
And then we go into Eternals.
That's Angelina Jolie, yeah?
Angelina Jolie, Richard Madden from Game of Thrones, Robert Stark, Kumail Nanjiani, and then a bunch of other people. No, Salma Hayek's in there.
I love Kumail Nanjiani.
Is anybody else in there that people would actually know?
Probably.
There might be another couple names, but they're not names that I'm super familiar with. Sorry,
what's it called again?
The Eternals.
The Eternals, yeah. And this is, were people expecting the Eternals? I feel like it was.
Yeah, this was very heavily rumored that the Eternals. I mean, we heard about the Eternals being in development.
Okay.
So we figured that it was going to be in Phase 4. And Kumail Nanjiani was rumored to be associated with it. Oh yeah, that's right. Brian Tyree Henry, who I really like from Atlanta. He was also the voice of Jefferson Davis. No, not Jefferson. Yeah, Jefferson Davis, Miles Morales' father. I don't really know these other actors. Dong Siak Ma, who is playing Gilgamesh. I'll go through them all. Angelina Jolie is Thena. Richard Madden is Icarus. Kumail Nanjiani is playing Kingo. Salma Hayek is Ajak, who is actually the leader of the Eternals. So it's really cool that's
nice.
Salma Hayek.
That's cool.
And it's actually a man in the comics. Brian Tyree Henry is playing Phastos. Dong Siak Ma is playing Gilgamesh. And Leah McHugh is Sprite, and Lauren Ridloff is Makari. So Makari, again, I believe, is a male character in the comics as well.
This is also directed by a woman, and a woman of color at that.
Yep.
Which is awesome. I keep saying just woman instead of their names. So Chloe Zhao is who's directing the Eternals. That's so cool.
And so if those names sound familiar, the characters' names, it's because all of these characters are essentially the idea of the Eternals is that you remember the Celestials from Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah.
So the Celestials created everything in the Marvel Universe, right? Like they kind of exist outside the multiverse.
That's what the big head is, right? Like the Nowhere is made out of a Celestial.
Yeah, they exist outside of the multiverse. They're kind of like super special. And the idea is that they essentially like the in the MCU, the explanation is that it's the Infinity Stones that like they came out of the creation of the universe, but they're responsible for like they each represent an element. Well, there is a celestial for each Infinity Stone. And the Celestials are the ones who created the Infinity Stones and plant them in each reality, in each multiverse, in order to create those multiverses. And there's more than one set of Infinity Stones by this logic. There's in every multiverse has its own set.
Oh yeah, okay.
So even though ours are destroyed, it's entirely possible we could see them again.
Yeah.
In any case, the Celestials created the Eternals basically by like messing around with humans and creating like a super race of humans. So they're immortal, hence being called the Eternals. And the idea is that the gods and heroes of legends are real people, and they were Eternals, and some of them are multiples of these people. So that's why like Gilgamesh is a Mesopotamian hero. I think he was like a king as well. Kind of like a Hercules type character. Athena obviously is Athena. Icarus is Icarus, and he's actually in the Marvel comics. He's connected to the myth of Icarus. He's actually the father of Icarus from the story.
Oh, cool.
And what are the other ones?
Ajax.
Ajax is Ajax, who is another hero. But that character is also connected to like Quetzalcoatl and in South American mythology. Phastos is short for Hephaestus.
I love stuff like that. It makes me so happy.
Sprite connects into like Puck and the sort of that element of Greek mythology.
Yeah.
And Makari, I'm not as clear on. I can't remember what Makari is inspired by. My brain is full of a lot of information at the moment because I've been trying to read up on all of this stuff to know what I'm talking about. Because these characters are unfamiliar as heck. Mercury. There you go. So the idea is basically that these characters have been in the MCU the whole time, and we're just now gonna learn about them and how they were involved in basically everything. And one of the expectations is that this is going to be very tied into mutants.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
And like how mutants enter back into the world that we haven't seen
yet? Yeah. Essentially, like either we'll get some intervention by the Celestials and they'll create mutants, or the Eternals will create mutants.
Okay.
One or the other. Like that's sort of the theory at the moment. Yeah. And I think like my guess is that it will be tied back into the Infinity Stones, and like that the energy wasn't destroyed and it has to go somewhere. Yeah. So I think like it'll be the Eternals going like, now that the Infinity Stones have been destroyed, this plane of the multiverse is in danger of essentially just like imploding, because So the Infinity Stones, like they serve a purpose in the universe of like representing and creating these elements, right? So without them, what happens? And I think that's what this story will be about. I think it's why it has to happen so close,
right, to
the beginning of Phase
and this
4.
is a film, right? Like this
is a movie.
Actually a movie that'll be
So after that is Shang-Chi. That's the February one for 2021. Shang-Chi is basically a martial artist badass that can learn. So his superpower is that he can learn. It's kind of like Taskmaster, actually. He can learn any fighting style.
Yeah, which is really cool.
Like basically instantly. Like he can see it and then he can do it. And this is a character who's kind of been on the periphery. This is a little bit like they are kind of going back to what happened with Phase 1 of the MCU. Of like they couldn't use the X-Men, they couldn't use Spider-Man, they couldn't use the Fantastic Four, they couldn't even use Ghost Rider or Daredevil.
So
right? So they had to go with, Iron Man. Nobody gives a crap about Iron Man. Well, nobody knows who the Eternals or Shang-Chi are either. But, like, we've all fallen in love with Iron Man, Captain America, the Hulk.
Yeah.
They are trying to go back and do the same thing again.
Yeah.
And Shang-Chi is a really great example of this. This is a character that even comic fans are not super familiar with. He kind of is best known for, like, coming into other characters' stories when a character needs to, when they need their Yoda moment of like, I've been defeated by the villain, I need to go away and learn something new in order to come back and beat the bad guy, right?
Interesting.
So he's interacted with Spider-Man, with I think Blade, like with like a dozen characters across the across the Marvel Comics universe. And taught them martial arts and that sort of thing. So this will be his origin story, theoretically. And you mentioned before he's going to be played by Simu Liu, who is a Canadian actor. He's from Mississauga, which is in Ontario. Be better if he was from the West Coast, but that's all right. We'll take what we can get. And if you've never watched Kim's Convenience, you're doing yourself a disservice. It is a fantastic TV show. It's a really great sitcom about a Korean family in Toronto that own a convenience store, Kim's Convenience, and it's just about their family. And he is, they're all great on the show, but he is definitely the one where you watch the show and you're like, that guy's going to go somewhere. I just started watching Kim's Convenience about a year ago, and we kind of watched a couple episodes, and I was like, this is good. This is a good show. We should watch this. And then for whatever reason, we didn't continue. And then recently, like a couple months ago,
you started rewatching it again.
We started watching it again, and it's like the show that it's our go-to for Crystal and I when it's like, because we don't have to think about it. Like,
it's
you just
nice
put it on and you
it's a
just
sitcom.
watch
There's
an
not
episode.
a lot of sitcoms that are actually, and that are like not terrible, like punch down kind of sitcoms. Like exactly. It's a little hard. So I come from a theater background, so I actually first learned about Kim's Convenience because it's like a theater play by a like prominent Canadian playwright, and so it was like performed at the theater company I worked at. And then so when I heard Kim's Convenience was coming as a TV series, I was like, oh, congratulations to that playwright for getting his work seen on a like larger stage. But it's pretty cool that it's also like, it's like I like that it's a Canadian like content, because we don't create a lot of Canadian content that actually gets an international stage. So the fact that
it is two shows right now, it's Schitt's Creek and Kim's Convenience.
That they've
These
been
are
able
the two
to,
things
like,
that are.
But also,
sorry, Letterkenny's also out there.
But like also Schitt's Creek, though, people knew who Eugene Levy was beforehand, whereas Kim's Convenience is the first time that something's been sort of put out into the ether, and like Canadian talent is being celebrated because of something that was created by Canadians. And I really love that. And also, there's not a ton of Canadians in the MCU. I think we have Colby Smulders and Evangeline Lilly, but I can't think of other Canadians really that are in.
We got a lot of Australians.
There's like a lot of. So it's kind of cool. And also like awesome representation, like in like the Asian community.
Well, that's the great thing
Awkwafina
about this.
being in it too. She's so fantastic, and that they recognize what they're doing. Like that's the biggest thing with something like Kim's Convenience and the actors that are part of it, especially him. He recognizes how important it is to see characters like that he's going to be representing on the larger stage.
Yeah. So he tweeted back in 2014, I think. It was basically, Captain America and Thor are pretty cool, but where's Shang-Chi?
Yeah.
And he's kind of like, he retweeted a bunch of his tweets from back in the day with like LOL and we did it, like sort of thing. And when they announced last year that Shang-Chi was coming, that it was in development, he tweeted, like, hey, hit me up, like I'm here, ready. And now he's Shang-Chi.
So cool.
This is an actor that I just recently have fallen in love with, and now he's going to be a part of one of my favorite it's really franchises, cool. And he's going to be like basically one of the characters coming into. I mean, like the Ten Rings is a reference to the Mandarin. Mandarin is an Iron Man villain. And the 10 Rings were featured in 2 out of the 3 Iron Man movies, in both Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 3. Not the real 10 Rings in Iron Man 3. That was Aldrich Killian using them as part of his propaganda thing. But there's a short movie, one of the Marvel one-shots called Hail to the King, that connects the dots between the 10 Rings from the first Iron Man. The 10 Rings are the guys who kidnapped him at the beginning. So they're the ones who are responsible for creating Iron Man. And the guy, like, there is, at the time, it was like, the leader of the 10 Rings was meant to sort of be a stand-in-ish for the Mandarin, because they couldn't really conceive of doing the Mandarin back then. But now we can. Like, now we're in a world where, like the Eternals is happening, and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is a title that we're going to talk about. So the Mandarin can come in and be the real Mandarin now. And that's really exciting, because like this is the legacy of Iron Man's character coming into another movie about it's going to be a kung fu MCU film, and it's this actor that like I'm that is like basically so excited
he's
about.
Basically like this is his opportunity to sort of move and it's just like it's really cool when you find like talented people that can be like put forward. And also Awkwafina is fabulous as well, so I'm really excited for the two of them to plus it was really great. Anyways, you should follow him on Twitter if you don't already, because he's great. Apparently Variety just did a thing where because he did a bunch of stock photos when he was just starting out. Nice. So this big publication picked it up, and they're like, if you just heard all the news, go back to his recent, like his early work, and it's like featuring him as man who gives boardroom presentation, and it's like these 4 photos, and he just like tweeted back to me, he's like, I hate this. Like it's just like really, it's pretty great.
It's one of those things where it's like, well, you asked for this. This is also what you wanted.
And Evangeline Lilly did like live line like things. Yeah. It's just really great that Canadian actors do a lot of stuff that's really weird before they get picked up, because in Canada, like you don't really get super famous. So you do what you gotta do. So it's just interesting that these people are like, it's like there's steady work for actors in Canada all the time. It's just that they never become MCU stars, so it doesn't really matter what they did in the past. Anyways, it's interesting.
And the bad guy Mandarin is being played by, I think it's Tony Leung, who is like a big star in China. Nice. So it's a big deal if you're in that community. If you live in China, which is one of the reasons why they're making this movie, because that's the biggest market on the planet for films, and MCU movies do really well in China. This one's going to break records like crazy because China's going to come out to see it.
I will say, I'm pretty sure that he wasn't born in Canada. So I think he was born in China. So I think he has dual citizenship. So, but like we claim him as Canadian. But I think that there's like a little bit of that too. Like they do strategic casting with stuff like that. So it's got to be important that there's like movies that premiere in China. There's like very strict regulations as to like what kinds of actors have to be in your movies and stuff like that. So I think that it's important that he's Canadian. Sorry, I just want to like before I like misspeak about like what his background is, but I feel like they were saying he was born in China and immigrated to Canada at the age of 5. So but he's Canadian, but
it's and this is the thing, is that nationalism is dumb, and both Canada and China can claim him equally, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually a good thing, because
he's only 30 years old. Ugh.
No wonder he looks so fit. If I was 30 years old, I'd look that fit too. I did not look like that when I was 30 years old. He is a very handsome, very fit young man, and I can say young man because he's 4 years younger than me. That's okay. It's gonna get worse as we get older. Again, listen to the uncut version, pay your $5 and you can hear me go into a lot more about that. Next up is WandaVision, which is the logo kind of gives us the most information about this.
Super weird. What is this show?
So
I'm all for it, but
my guess here is that what we're gonna get is after the events of Endgame. We know that it takes place after Endgame. It stars Scarlet Witch and Vision. Vision is dead.
Yeah.
But Scarlet Witch has the ability to reshape reality. Her powers come from the Reality Stone, right? Okay. Her mutant powers in the comics are literally the ability to reshape reality. At one point in time, she says no more mutants, and then there are no more mutants. She changes that the 616 universe into the age of the House of M universe. And that has lasting repercussions that are still being dealt with in Marvel today. She absolutely has the ability to just create a pocket dimension where she is living her life with Vision. And I don't know how much they talked about this on the panel, but the logo kind of makes it seem like it's going to be like a 1950s sort of nuclear family sort of idea. There's a comic called Vision that from a couple of years ago, which is a pretty well-known story from the last few years, where it's the opposite kind of Wanda and Vision break up, and like she doesn't want anything to do with him, and he goes off and he creates his own family. He creates a wife version of like a woman Vision and 2 children, and then it goes horribly wrong because it's an android creating androids, they don't have a sense of right. They're basically like sociopaths, and it's about him teaching them how to be people. But it goes really really dark.
This rom-com, this like 1950s rom-com.
Okay, so I think it will start that way, and it'll feel that way until we realize that Wanda is lost in her own
like psyche. Yeah,
which is very common for the character. And it's going to bleed into Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We already know that she's going to be in it. That she's going to be... Yeah. That what Kevin Feige said is that basically Scarlet Witch in Doctor Strange 2 is like the Hulk in Thor Ragnarok.
Oh, interesting.
Right? It's like the same sort of relationship where it's going to be... It's still his story, but it's going to be very much about her.
Okay.
And we're pretty sure they didn't announce it, but Scott Derrickson, the director, has been posting a lot of stuff on Instagram and Twitter about the character Nightmare, and they're heralding this as the first horror movie, like truly scary movie in the MCU. Scott Derrickson is known for doing horror movies. What are his...
But that's really cool. If they're like the thing that Marvel, we talked about this before, the thing that Marvel is really good at is giving directors the platform to be who they are at their core and hiring the right people for the right movies and like the feel of like
Sinister
what it is they
is the
so they might make like a Doctor Strange horror movie.
Yeah. That's what they're making.
That's cool.
And the Multiverse of Madness is a reference to the In the Mouth of Madness. Which is like Lovecraft Cthulhu story. There's actually there's a movie from I think the 90s with Samuel that is a really weird messed up. And so like we don't really know a lot about it yet, but the speculation is that basically WandaVision will be about her getting lost in her own mind essentially, and her powers kind of taking over, and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is going to be about Doctor Strange basically having to go in and save her because she's messing up the multiverse, right? And more than likely the consequences of that are going to have to do with Nightmare gaining power and then them having to team up to stop him. So you're going to have the Sorcerer Supreme and the Scarlet Witch teaming up. This is why these movies are awesome.
Oh man!
Like when you see, look, after all those portals opened up and all of those superheroes came stepping through, and that last half an hour of Endgame, anything is possible at this point. Yeah. But like the sentence that I just said is so much fun. Yeah. It's just, this is why comic books are cool, and it's why the MCU gets to be cool.
This is cool. Nightmare is the ruler of a dream dimension.
Yeah.
ugh.
Do you see how all these pieces fit together?
They just fit so well.
So this is where it's like...
They know what they're doing, man.
By the time all of this gets up and running, because then we go into Loki, which is another series, which is spring 2021.
Does that take place after Infinity War as well?
It takes place technically in the midst of Endgame. So this is Loki from 2012 from Endgame, the one that gets the Tesseract and blinks into...
Oh, the one that
because they messed up.
Because they messed up the timeline.
So think about that. That's the Loki. This is what Kevin Feige said. That's the Loki that was just bashed around by the Hulk.
Oh, and then immediately...
Thor 2 hasn't happened yet. Thor Ragnarok certainly hasn't happened. No redemption. He's a villain.
Interesting.
He's still a bad guy.
Ooh.
He escapes and he goes off and does this whole thing. His mother doesn't die, so he doesn't know, like, he doesn't experience that pain and that sort of, like, that one of the things that contributes to him having his redemption story in Thor Ragnarok, right? So, well, I guess in Infinity War really is where it's fulfilled. But, yeah, really interesting. And the idea is that he's going to be... So, when you look at the logo, there are 4 different fonts to make up the name Loki.
Oh, right, yeah.
And the idea there, this is what we've been hearing rumors about, is that he is using the Tesseract to bounce around time and space. And just create mischief. He's the god of mischief, and that's what that's going to be about.
I love it.
We'll have to wait and see what kind of repercussions that has. But I don't think we'll have long to wait and see what happens there, because after that is Marvel What If, which is all of the stories of, like, what if Peggy Carter became Captain America instead of Steve Rogers, which is the first one they're going to do. It's What If will be a series of these. Like, it's not going to be like one story
that's like
and then another story. It's like it'll be animated like individual stories.
So cool.
And the first one that they've talked about is Peggy Carter becomes Captain America, and Steve Rogers, because he doesn't get the super soldier serum, essentially Howard Stark builds him an Iron Man suit long before Iron Man exists. Cool. So basically like a Mark 1, like the one that Tony builds in the desert. Cool. And he uses that, and she's Captain America, and the two of them go and they fight the Nazis. And I'm in. And whatever other what ifs they want to do.
Yeah.
So
That's so
the cool thing about this is that it is MCU. It's going to have all of the original voice actors.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
It's animated,
like
but it's going to be everybody
like
coming back.
Yeah, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Because they can. So
yeah. So then after that one is Hawkeye, which is going to be about Hawkeye dealing with everything that happened in Endgame, and
because he's no longer Ronin.
Yeah, and, coming back from being Ronin. This will be his redemption story. This is what Natasha sacrificed herself for. Yeah, so I think there are two things that the biggest problem I think people had with Endgame is they didn't feel like Black Widow being one of the original Avengers, being one of the original heroes. Like, she was like the second hero that was introduced. Yeah. Well, I guess third, because War Machine is in the first Iron Man. But people feel like she didn't get her proper send-off like Tony Stark did. But she's getting her own movie, which I think will be that send-off.
People forgot about the fact that she's getting her own movie.
Well, because it hadn't been officially announced, right?
Yeah.
And then Hawkeye is going to continue that story of, like, this is what she sacrificed herself for, is that like Clint has more to give. And like her movie, his series is going to be passing the torch to the next, Kate Bishop, the Hawkeye in the Young Avengers, which is cool. So leading towards that, and I mean, like, there's not much else to say about that. It's going to be very heavily influenced by the MCU stuff, but also very influenced by the Matt Fraction stories, which, if people know what that is, like, if you want to read really good Hawkeye stuff, go read the Matt
It's
Fraction.
also the most, like, Arrow-based show. Like, it'll be basically Arrow, because Arrow will no longer exist at that point.
It'll be a much better version of Arrow.
If you're, like, itching for some Arrow in a year and a half, there you go.
Yep. Yeah. And then closing it out, Thor: Love and Thunder, Taika Waititi coming back to write and direct.
Natalie Portman.
Chris Hemsworth, Tessa Thompson, Natalie Portman.
I just, I was waiting for Natalie Portman to come back in because I was like, there's a reason why they're not completely like writing her off.
Yeah.
And so they just needed the right thing for her.
So she's coming in as the Mighty Thor, which is the official name for what people often refer to as Lady Thor. Right. But the Mighty Thor is her actual name. That's the actual like technical like the. If you were talking to somebody official at Marvel, that's what they would refer to that character as. Because calling her Lady Thor is kind of...
undermines the character a little bit, yeah.
It kind of definitely implies that Thor needs to be a man, and it's novel that Thor is a woman, instead of the idea of...
Is Thor still Thor in it?
Well, Thor is Thor. He's got Stormbreaker, right? But Mjolnir has been destroyed.
Right.
So... it's unclear where she's going to get her powers from at this point, but Taika Waititi did hand her Mjolnir on stage, and she held it high. So,
which is cool.
So theoretically, another Mjolnir will be created, and she'll wield it and become Thor.
And this is a big episode, or like reveal for like LGBTQ representation too with Tessa Thompson.
Because Tessa Thompson is basically has been announced as like the first like queer representation in the
like
MCU.
Officially, like it was actually confirmed by Kevin Feige. Now, depending on what they're actually going to do in the show, that'll really be what
the story of Thor: Love and Thunder is she is the king of Asgard, and she needs a queen. That's why it's called Love and Thunder, and obviously bringing Jane back, having her be the mighty Thor with Thor being the unworthy Thor, and the two of them, and that dynamic, and figuring out what's going on there between them, it's going to be interesting.
And I love Taika Waititi too. I'm excited for that to be.
It's going to be great. It's going to be so good. This is the thing. There's a lot of unknowns in this. There are things that I am more excited about and less excited about. There isn't a single thing on this list that I'm like, eh.
Yeah. Right.
It's all like, okay. Like, maybe if I had to put two things at the bottom, it's going to be Black Widow and the Eternals, to be honest. Like, those are kind of my least interested ones on this list. But even still, Black Widow's got David Harbour in it.
But here's my thing, too. Because
like Scarlett Johansson's in it.
The problem I have, too, is that of everything, same with me. But those are also the two female-led like things in the next and it's because they give them the path of least resistance. Where this is the thing that kind of sucks is they're like, they're not really our strongest anyways. Let's just give them to like whoever.
I don't think that that's necessarily the thinking there.
I hope so.
I think that it's much more. Look, I think of all of these, the one with the most box office draw is going to be Black Widow. Scarlett Johansson's one of the most bankable actors on the planet.
Yeah, that's true. Although she said some like terrible things about representation recently, where she like doubled down on being able to play a tree or whatever.
Yeah, she was also quoted out of context, and that was unfair. So she had to make a statement, and she was kind of. I feel like she was backed into a corner. Studios make decisions based on bankability. I mean, like we talked about it, the strategy stuff. She should not have accepted the role in Ghost in the Shell. She shouldn't have done it, but she did, and she has to live with that. And it's kind of I think it's unfair. I think it's unfair to kind of like for the media to like go at her over and over about this stuff. Like it's kind of. What's she gonna say?
What it was, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like what's she gonna say? Yeah, you're right. I was racist when I did that. She's not gonna say that. That's what people want. That's like people want her to come out and go like, you guys, the internet was right, you guys. Which like the internet is right. She shouldn't have taken that role. That movie shouldn't have been made.
But the opposite of that is that Emma Stone completely knows that the role that she took in Aloha was terrible, and she like. Admits that and is like, I'm really sorry that I was a terrible person for that. Like I didn't realize the like consequences of. So to double down on something where you're like, no, I stand by my choice to take this role.
I would say that Emma Stone's career has taken a pretty significant hit after that movie, both because that movie was crap and because of the controversy around that. So it's kind of like. Like, I don't know. It's difficult. I'm not saying that what Scarlett Johansson did was the right thing to do. I'm just saying, like, what are you supposed to do? Like, there's no, she could tank her career by saying what everybody wants her to say, or she can kind of try and move past it, but you can't move past something if the media is just like hounding you about it. Yeah. So like to say like she doubled down on it, it's like she said something in an interview that was taken out of context and then she had to address it because it made her look really, really, really bad. Like the first quote made her look like she was like, whatever, you guys are just all dumb. If I want to play a tree, I can play a tree. Right. I should be able to do whatever I want. And like the conversation was much more complex than that. They just took one sentence out, right? Because it was more about like when you an artist, like artists should be free to kind of explore different things. And then it's like, okay, but you are a high profile actor on a world stage and you have a responsibility. And it's sort of like she kind of missed that part of the conversation. But at the same time, like she's also not wrong. She's not right, but she's also not wrong. Of like, actors should kind of be able to. I think it was Bryan Cranston kind of said something. He was quoted in one of the articles that I was reading about it, where he was like, "If like I'm an actor, I get paid to play characters. Studios make decisions based on what's financially best for them. That's how movies get made. So." If it makes sense for me to play a gay character, even though I'm not gay, is that okay? Because he was in a movie where he played a person in a wheelchair.
Right. Yeah.
And people were like, you should get a person who's actually in a wheelchair. And it's like, but you should also make a movie that's going to make back the money that the people put into it. So it's like it's difficult. It's not,
and it's a conversation that's changing right now, and it's all part of that conversation because it all plays into each other. And
so this goes into, and this is where I say like, Kevin Feige is a very smart, a very intelligent, both in like the business sense, but also I think in the emotional sense, producer, and that's why these movies are so successful. One of those I think the actor that's playing. Oh man, what was that character's name that I didn't know was Mercury? Makari.
Yeah.
There was something about, I think,
because that's a guy in the actual series, right? I'm pretty sure she's deaf. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're changing that character.
Yeah.
To include they cast an actor. Yeah. To come in and play this character in this way as a completely new interpretation, or maybe not completely new, but like a new interpretation that is more representative, and they're not getting somebody to play a deaf person. So I do think this stuff is going in the right direction.
Yeah. But in the same way that you said that there's certain things that they can do now that they couldn't do 10 years ago,
absolutely,
15 years ago,
which
is really cool. I'm excited to see where stuff is like evolving to, and that like there is just like a standard that you can see shifting in all the stuff, and a lot of the stuff that was really interesting at Comic-Con is that you like feel the shift. And I go to a lot of the female panels, right? But it's like they're like the things that Me Too has done for the industry is just astronomical. Well, not even just for female representation, but that like people are not allowed to be jerks anymore. Yeah. Like when you're in a workspace and you see an intern being harassed, people are like, nope. You're not allowed to be a jerk to like interns, like.
But like I think this is a really good indicator that the conversation has and needs to kind of shift, because I think people are kind of still having a lot of the same arguments that we were having 10 years ago, and it's like, look at this lineup: Black Widow, female-led, female-directed, right? The Falcon and Winter Soldier, you have a person of color in the lead title role, arguably the more important of the two title characters. The Eternals, Angelina Jolie and Salma Hayek are the two top billed characters in that, and then Kumail Nanjiani's in that. The whole like Richard Madden's the only white dude, right? Shang-Chi, I don't think I need to explain that. WandaVision, Doctor Strange is a white dude. Loki is a white dude. What If is going to be about everybody. Hawkeye is about a white dude passing on the mantle of that character to a woman. And Thor is being shifted away from Chris Hemsworth to focus on Natalie Portman and Tessa Thompson.
That's impressive.
Like,
the shift that is.
That's really that's a continental shift. That's massive from what we were doing before, which was Iron Man, a white dude, Thor, a white dude, Captain America, a white dude, the Hulk, a white dude, Hawkeye, a white dude, and Black Widow.
Yeah, like it's.
And then you've got their token black guy, which is Nick Fury, right? So, like we've definitely moved into a much more progressive Marvel Cinematic Universe, and hopefully it's just an indicator of everything else that's coming, and we'll get. I really hope we get Miss Marvel introduced in Captain Marvel 2. Kamala Khan, that would be so great. Because she's such a cool character and deserves to be in the MCU. Like this, everything is possible, and we barely even talked about all the other stuff that they did mention and that's coming. Like Fantastic Four is going to happen, and what are they going to do with that? And he said like mutant stuff. Like they're aware of everything that has come before. They're going to do something very different with the X-Men.
Because they can.
Yeah,
So exciting.
Yep. This is a long podcast. This is 2.5 hours. It's almost midnight. It's very warm in this room.
I'm so excited we talked so much about Comic-Con, though.
It was good.
Yay, there's so much to talk about for Comic-Con.
Yeah.
I feel like because I was actually there this year, it's like, it means a lot more. It's like different to, even though all the Marvel, I wasn't in the Hall H Marvel stuff, it's still nice to like have.
You could feel the energy, right?
Yeah. And it's like, and you're surrounded by people that are like doing fun stuff and just jazzed about being nerds.
Yeah.
I got a art mystery box. Ooh, okay, we'll end on my shopping thing because I was like, I'm not gonna buy stuff. I can't buy stuff. I can't fit anything in my bag. But then I went to like the Moleskine booth, and they have those cool like Superman and all this stuff. Yeah. But in it they had 2 prints, and I was like, you guys aren't selling this Wonder Woman and Superman print, are you? They're like, oh no, we bought those. And I happened to go there. The booth next to them was all this DC art, like it was all like different interpretations of the DC superheroes. And I was like, this is great. Like I would love a Superman on my wall. And they're like, you know what? We have 1 mystery box left. Do you want a mystery box? It's like $600 worth of art. And I'm like, I can't have anything Batman on my wall. Like if I get something that's just Batman, I'll be mad about it. Yeah. And they're like, well, you know what? If you get something that's just Batman, we'll give you something else. And I was like, sold, man. Because all the rest of it is like Wonder Woman and it's all these. So when they open it up, they're going through, and I got like the like metal print is like the Justice League, and then there's a Superman versus Doomsday where the artist is like there. It's like Thomas Kincaid or something. So he like drew the Superman on the back for me, like so it's like personalized. And then I got the Superman print that I wanted, like the one that was the other art. But then the final big one was like a Batman, and I was like, oh man. I was like, it's okay, have a different one. And there was a Wonder Woman one that had just been signed by the artist, so I got the Wonder Woman one instead. And it's just like, so it was all art that I love, and it's just a thing where it's like it fed my mystery box like fever, because there's like you just want to buy the mystery boxes because it's like gambling. You never know what you're gonna get, and then when you get stuff you really want. I've never purchased
a mystery box in that.
I really there was an Arrow mystery box. It was $50. It took all my energy not to buy it because I really love mystery boxes.
I have to find I'm gonna have to whenever next con I see Andy at, I'm gonna have to buy that Flash and Arrow. Those little 5x7 prints again, because I can't find them.
Oh, no way.
I put them somewhere like to keep them safe, and now I can't find them.
Too safe.
Yeah, they're too safe.
Yeah. But anyways, I'm proud of myself for not buying more things. The cosplay was phenomenal. If you check out our Thunderquack Facebook and Twitter and stuff, and Instagram, I tried to post a couple. I have so much, but I have to say the shout out, like the best group costume was the Jurassic Park like cosplay that I saw.
That was pretty good.
It was really sweet. So there's that, and I haven't actually posted them yet. I'll probably post them on the Quiver one, but I did try to take pictures of all of the arrows and Deadpools that I saw. Not Deadpool. Deathstrokes. Yeah. So there was way more Deathstrokes than there were arrows. I felt real embarrassed. I stopped in Artemis and I was like, do you like Green Arrow? They're like, no, I'm dressed as Artemis. And I was like, I'm sorry. I don't know Artemis very well. So I was like, you just have arrows. I thought you were Arrow. But anyways, she was actually a really good Artemis because I Googled it afterwards. But so I haven't posted those ones yet, but I might post them onto the Quiver page specifically. But
cool.
It was good. Cosplay was good. It's definitely like a reason to go. Is just to see all the people that are putting in way too much energy and effort into these awesome
Same with Star Wars Celebration. It's so
cool.
Like when you're walking around the floor at Star Wars Celebration and there's just R2 units everywhere and they're real and they do more than what he does in the movies. So you're like, this is the greatest place on earth.
Yeah. So cool.
Cool. Well,
being a nerd.
That's it for this week's episode. We'll be back next week to talk about The Last Jedi and rank it against the other Star Wars films in the Skywalker saga. But until then, you can stay tuned to all of our podcasts, such and such, over at thunderquack.com. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/thunderquack, on Twitter at ThunderQuackNet, and on Instagram at ThunderQuack Podcast.
You can also follow us individually on Instagram. I'm at akonkin86, AKONKIN 86, and I'm just akonkin on Twitter. I totally messed that up. I've been doing it right for 7 years, but I'm gonna start making people go to my Instagram because my Twitter has like nothing. Although I did tweet while I was at Comic-Con because I felt like I had to give a little bit of content to different things. I even posted some images on the the Patreon app. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're on the Patreon app, but there's it's basically like stories. Yeah. So I was able to do some. They're really short. They're like 10 seconds, but some stories and stuff. So trying to use more of the social media that we have at our disposal with Thunderquack and Quiver. So.
You can follow me on Facebook, or not on Facebook. You could if you wanted to, I guess. On Twitter and Instagram at Arkwolf, ARKWULF. And if you like what you hear, you can support us in two ways. First, by going to store.thunderquack.com to pick up some merchandise, or by heading to patreon.com/thunderquack and kicking in with your monthly pledge over there and get, you can get like the Thunderquack podcast early. You can get into the Facebook group. You can get the uncut version for $5, which in this instance is going to be 2.5 hours long, which you're definitely getting your $5 worth this month. But whew. Go to patreon.com/thunderquack if you're not supporting us there. We would appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who does support us. That's it for this week. We'll be back next week to talk about The Last Jedi.
I have no sign off because it's the Comic-Con one, right? Like, stay geeky. I don't know.
Nope, that's not good. That's not good.